Hello, Instagram. It is my last day here in beautiful Koh Samui. It has been such a wonderful time here with my family. I've really enjoyed just how rejuvenating and relaxing it's been. But interestingly enough, a lot of like people have just started to trickle out. My sister and her husband left yesterday. My best friend left yesterday. My friend Locke left today. Our family friend Locke left today. My mom and I leave tomorrow. And it's interesting because when we're in these times of transition, as sensitives and empaths, it's really easy to feel ungrounded. And last night when I was on the phone with my boyfriend, we were talking and we had this plan for him to come move to Paris after we spent some time here in Thailand, both like pursuing our creative endeavors and also just recharging our batteries. But actually what's happening is that he's going to have to be in the States. And so that sort of just throws everything somewhat up into the air. And again, so for me today, I've been really feeling somewhat ungrounded. So I wanted to give you some of my favorite tools on how I get grounded when I am feeling in the flux. You know, the first thing about feeling ungrounded, sometimes it can come up as anxiety, sometimes it can come up as just overthinking, sometimes it can come up as just like really being in your head. You know, when we feel ungrounded, that's a really big sign that we're not in our bodies, that we are in that mental place of trying to figure things out. And in that space, we are totally disconnected from our intuition, disconnected from the present moment, and we are disconnected from ourselves. You know, the interesting thing is that we really want to feel safe, feel grounded, feel held. And when we don't feel that way, our minds go a million miles an hour trying to figure out all of the different things in order to create that container for ourselves. But when we do that, we actually disconnect and we can kind of throw our bodies into a space of being kind of like in fight or flight. So the first thing that I always do and that I always love to do is I just start to reassure myself. When I feel ungrounded, I will put one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly, and I will close my eyes, dropping my attention to my heart center where I connect with my spirit, and just say, everything is gonna be okay. When we're in places of we're feeling ungrounded in our relationships and our work and our lives and all of this, what happens is our mind goes into overdrive to try and figure things out. And underneath that is a fear that we won't be able to figure it out. And in that space, we get contracted. And so if we can just start even right there, everything is gonna be okay. You are going to be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. It'll all work out and you don't have to figure it out. It starts to relax and unwind us. The thing is we often are the ones who are the comforters, who are the support systems, but we don't necessarily allow for that sort of support for us. So in starting to even just ground here, you know, second of all, of really paying attention to how our mind goes into that space of trying to figure things out and how that can create like an anxious energy. And really in doing that, we can really notice the onset of the emotion and how we feel there. And in our minds, we can feel like, oh my gosh, this is how it always is, or it's never gonna be, or we go into a lot of like always or never or try. And in that space, we then over-identify with our feeling of being ungrounded. And what happens is, you know, the interesting thing about anxiety, the interesting thing is that a lot of times we notice really strongly when it comes on, but we don't notice when it starts to recede. And when we aren't able to notice those things, we can over-identify and overthink like this is the way that I am, or this is the way that things are gonna be, or any of it. So of just even starting to notice when it comes on and notice and tell yourself that this is a temporary experience and that the energy is going to move. Bringing me to my favorite point in numero 3, move your body. Move your body. I say this all the time in so many of my videos, and I really mean it because it is one of your easiest, most powerful tools to get connected to your intuition, to find ground, to reconnect to your breath, and to really feel safe and secure. You know, our bodies, this physical body is my home and is where I feel safe. oftentimes we try and look outside of ourselves for safety, look for outside of ourselves for feeling safe in circumstances, in jobs, in relationships. But the thing is what we have to do is start to change that paradigm and start to connect here. That this is my safe, grounded place from which to operate from. You know, when we also feel ungrounded, a lot of times because we are these sensitive empaths, we are really tuning into the energy of everyone else, to our relationships, in our work, at all of it. And as a strategy to find ground, what we'll often do is try and make them feel better so that we feel better. And we have to start to reverse it and start to make ourselves feel better, reassure ourselves, reassure our spirits, and recognize that everybody will figure it out. You know, the interesting thing is that we have to really start to trust other people's spirit, that we have to trust our own spirit. And in starting to change that vibration and that frequency, what we're doing is returning back to our physicality and recognizing that everything is in flow and that we just have to flow, you know, as John Lennon says, like float downstream. And if we can start to relinquish that feeling of having to be in control, having to figure it out, having to manage, having to, you know, we allow ourselves a lot more bandwidth to participate in the world. You know, I say this a lot. Trust yourself and trust your spirit and trust other people's spirit that they can manage and that they can manage their own emotional experiences, and it's not on you to fix it. It's not on you to figure it out. It's not on you to make it better. But where we also have to slow down to get clear on what it is that we need. What are the things that we need? What are the things that feed our spirit? What are the things, where do I need to fill up my well first? How do I need to prioritize my self-care? How do I need to prioritize slowing down? And when we start to do that, it changes our ability to interact with other people. We come from that solid core of our own being. And that's not something that happens out here. It's something that happens in here. And that's the same thing of when we connect to our intuition. Our intuition doesn't happen outside of ourselves. It happens in here. The call is coming from inside the house. How are you picking up the phone? And when we're feeling ungrounded, and whether it's because we're affected by other people's energy, whether it's because our lives are in flux, you know, what happens is we're listening to the call out here, but not listening to the call in here. Bringing me to my other point of another tool that I really, really, really love to use is start to pray. Just start to pray. Turn it over. Turn it over to something outside of yourself. Turning it over to something outside of your own mind. Because the interesting thing is, when we try and figure it out, we really limit ourselves in how available we are. We get into the place of our own ego and pride where we think only I can figure this out. You know, I've told this story many, many, many times before, but when I was in Chicago a year and a half ago and I was leaving to transition to come to London and eventually Paris, you know, I moved to London and I was in a real space of trying to figure it out. I felt super ungrounded. I was like, I don't belong here. I don't know where I am, like where my life is going, all these different things. And my mind kept trying to churn and figure out what my life was going to look like and where I was going to ground and what was going to happen and all these different things. And it really just made myself absolutely crazy. Disconnected me from myself. I found that I was a lot more critical, a lot more harsh, a lot more impatient, took way too much responsibility, where I just was constantly being not kind to my sweet spirit. And my sweet spirit was feeling afraid. You know, when we're feeling ungrounded, where we are is we're feeling afraid that things aren't going to work out. And that's where we need to reassure ourselves. And I went and talked to my sister Sabrina, and one day she was just like, Sonia, you gotta let it go. You have to let it go. And it was interesting because for some reason, we had had all these conversations, but it was so true that I needed to just let go of having to figure it out. That I needed to turn it over to outside of myself, because our intellects are very limited in how they see the world. It's a lot of linear thinking. Our intuition is what connects us to the internet of ways that we can tune in. 1 year later, I am living in, like a few months later, I'm in Paris, fell in love in Thailand, traveled, and all of a sudden it was like, it really resonated with me that all of the energy that I was putting forth to figuring things out was me just trying too hard. It was trying too hard. In that place of trying too hard, I disconnected from myself because I didn't trust the universe. I didn't trust my guides. I didn't trust that I was going to be able to listen. I didn't trust because I felt afraid. And when we're in the space of feeling afraid, it's very natural for us to close off and to also try and find solution. You know, in our culture and in our society, we really don't like to tolerate feeling uncomfortable. And right now for me in this space where I'm in a lot of flux, where it's like what I thought was the plan isn't the plan, I don't even know where the plan is or how the plan is going or what the plan is, you know, there's part of me that wants to ground out and figure it all out. But there's another part of me that just has to show up and really make peace with feeling uncomfortable. And that I don't have to fix feeling uncomfortable. It's just something that I can watch to ebb and flow, that I can just trust to move, and that I can trust outside of myself, that I can trust God, that I can trust the universe, and that I can trust that I'm aware enough to know where the path is. And that it's not something that I have to figure out, and it's not something that I have to manage, and it's not something that I have to fix, and that I can really make peace with those parts of myself that get afraid. And by being compassionate and loving, by telling myself it's okay, everything is going to be okay, by praying, please, guides, angels, help me. I need help and support. Help me, help me figure it out. One of my favorite prayers, help me, just help me. And also other ways of supporting my body, meditating to make sure that I train my brain to not run after thoughts like a dog after a car. You know, moving my body, doing yoga or kickboxing, or, I'm gonna go swimming in a minute. Ways to ground myself to get back into the present moment, and also recognizing that everything is right here. Everything that you need is right here. It's right here. You're at home. You're at home. You are connected, and it's just a sense of having to remember who it is that you are, and how that you can not only remember who you are, but that you can trust that it will unfold in its own time. You're not too early, you're not too late, you're not anything. You're absolutely perfect and magnificent. And learning to get grounded again is really just an exercise in being self-loving. And who doesn't need that? And also getting some reassurance. Because guess what? Everything is gonna be okay. Whatever you're struggling with, I know in my heart that everything is gonna be okay. Even for the moment, if it doesn't feel that way, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you have to fix something. That just means that you need to be more patient, kind, and also just get some really, really good support because you deserve it. So anyway, wanted to send you all my love. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And those are some of my favorite tools to ground out when I'm feeling ungrounded. I've used all of them today, literally. I've used every single one. And I feel a lot better. I feel a lot better than when I did this morning. So a lot of times anxiety comes up like when we wake up or in the middle of the night or, and so just finding those ways, those practices that we get better and better and better at. So make friends with your sweet self because you are amazing. Okay, love you, bye.